Doing a little woodworking today. Woodworking and epoxy working. Working on a sailboat. I'm trying to get back in the water. I'm converting it to outboard power because of some problems I had with the inboard and the drivetrain. So this is one layer of what's going to be a sandwich inside the transom, so that it'll have more meat to hold the bracket that's going to go on there for now. I'll have some ideas for something different down the road, but and then this piece is basically going to cover the hole that I cut to get to where I could work on the inside of the transom. And because I see some more work down the road, I'm not just gonna put the old piece, I'm not going to just rebuild it back in place so that it would have to be cut open again. I am going to try to make something that looks halfway good, that can be screwed in, keep the rain out, and could always be popped back out to get back into work on the transom again down the road. So anyway, at the point right now. Oh, by the way, I was impressed so much that Double Boost whipped out a handsaw to do some woodworking the other day, that when I went to neaten up this little curve here today, and I was thinking of grabbing my belt sander, I said, you know what, let's just grab the old hand plane. And you know what, there's a lot of times where I think you could, about the time you'd run an extension cord, you could have got the job done with the hand tool. So that worked out pretty well. If that footage comes out, I'll put it in here. Alright, so this has already had one coat of epoxy put on it, and then I rough sanded it afterwards. Oh, I also trimmed it. I took it down to the boat and tried doing a little fitment with it, and it needed some more taken off. So did that. Now it's ready for another coat of epoxy, and when this is all good, I will just put some marine white paint on it and run with it. This is marine plywood, so the little voids and things like that are actually filled with epoxy already. So these layers of wood are put together with epoxy rather than, you know, whatever glue they use for normal plywood. This stuff's expensive. I'll get out, at least in my market. So this particular epoxy does not have a pump system or anything like that. In fact, I'm reusing these plastic jugs because it actually came in like paint cans, which are hard to work with, and so I've got my mixers set up and marked for a 2-to-1 mix, and I think if I get this system worked out the way I want to, it should be just as good as using. I had I built a boat one time that was basically plywood and epoxy. And for that, I had the West System stuff with the pumps, and I ended up giving all what I had left of that all away to a guy who's got a shop at a boatyard. and I didn't want to buy all that stuff again. The pumps and everything are expensive, and the West System epoxy is very expensive. And this stuff has pretty good reviews, and the only thing you got to get around is just dealing with coming up with your own way to mix it. And this is what I came up with. So starting off with the resin. And then the hardener. That should probably go ahead and mix while pouring. And so I'm not adding anything to this epoxy right now. I'm just using it as a coating. This very same stuff, you can add colorant to it and you know, put an epoxy floor down or whatever you want to do. But for a coating, I'm using it with no additives, and for bonding, I've got some various fillers and additives and things laying around. It's got a 40-minute pot life, which is a little bit temperature dependent. Pretty warm out here, so probably just want to get this job rolling. I should probably have some gloves on. I'm sure I'll get some on myself somehow or another. And I'll grab myself a chip brush. Tell you, I've these chip brushes, I use them for throwaway paint brushes. Done it for a long time. You know, these are the ones from Harbor Freight. I don't know where I used to get them. I built my boat back in the days before Harbor Freight, but they've always been somewhat bad in terms of, like, when you try to use them as a paintbrush, the you know, you'll lose a lot of the hairs into the job you're doing. Isn't too critical with this stuff because it'll always get sanded down before the final coat gets applied. But it seems like they're worse now. Maybe it's just my imagination. Maybe they were always just as bad. Yeah, but once you get epoxy on them, that's it. They're good for one use, and they go in the trash. So I'm not going to be using any kind of good brushes for this. Some light would be nice. I normally do this outside, but it's looking like it's starting to rain. I mean, like it's threatening to rain, should I say. These fumes here will get you high. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and open the garage door up here real quick. I need my few remaining brain cells. So this stuff you cannot put out in the weather with just clear coat, as a clear coat, because it will degrade in sunlight. So it will be top coated. I've never done it, but you know, some people have done it where they've have put this on bright finished wood, and then top coated with a varnish. So that's kind of an interesting idea, I think. I might try that with one of the pieces on my boat that I'm thinking about right now. Now this piece, like I said, is just going to have paint put on it. That other piece, because it's going to be structural, I'm going to coat it like this, and that's basically so that the wood, when I go to put the structural bonding on it, does not, suck in all the epoxy and weaken the structural joint. So that will also get a coat just like this, or a coat or two. But it still has to go back to the boat for another fit check. Plan now is to set this piece aside and still have room for that. Looks dangerous. Hopefully still have room to work on that piece on top of plastic. I hope that works. I don't have all the interior space I wish I did. Clear interior space. I have probably perfectly adequate interior space, but I've got crap all over it. This over a little bit more. Just a little bit more room. That'll work okay, I think. Looks like I might actually run out of epoxy. Hard to tell how much to make up per batch. One thing I wanted to point out, back when I built my little stitching glue boat 20 years ago, or longer. Gosh, that's almost 30 years ago. Anyway, I always wore those, surgical gloves. And there's probably still applications where I'd want to do that. But I mean, if you're going to be working on something for an extended period of time, those things get nasty to have on your hands. And I really like that they have these things now with, some rubbery protection where you need it, and then breathability for the rest of it. I think that's a big improvement over the old days. They're pretty cool to have. All right, do I have enough to even flip this over? I don't think so. I think I have enough to hit some of the dry spots. That's about it. So what I will do now is wait for this to go off. It's supposed to be hard enough to handle in 2 hours. Last batch I made up took longer than that, and it may have something to do with the fact that this is some old stuff I've had kicking around for years, and I'm kind of grateful that it goes off at all, because I didn't want to go out and spend $100 on a another batch. But it does seem to be kicking off. It's just it's not doing so in the prescribed time. All right. A couple hours later. Still see a little bit of indentation happening there. It's good enough to handle. It's not 100% cured. That'll be fine. Same here. So this is a coat and a sanding and another coat. And this is one coat. Kind of gives you an idea. Alright, so we'll take it down to the boat. Oh, there we go. This is where the propeller used to exit, or the shaft used to exit. And this is where the bracket's going to go. Those will be filled in. I have to relocate my ladder. So there's my access hole I cut. And that's how I want that to go. Something like that. I think I have plenty of room to put 3 screws down here at the bottom, 3 or 4 on the sides. 1, 2, like 5 on the top. Yeah, 3 on the sides, 3 on the bottom, and 5 on the top. And that thing will be in there. And it looks like I got room to come in. Good solid inch. Well, let's say a ½ inch. ½ inch on the bottom. Maybe 3/4 of an inch. All the way around. And actually, you know what? Let's change that angle down there. Let's get this sort of centered. And I brought a marker. Let's try to get, see that's it's about, let's see, yeah, I think this is going to fit better if I do that. And I should still have plenty of room up top here for it to drop down. Now, that could mean I wind up having to slice some more off the sides. That's okay. I want it to look good because I want this to be permanent. It's going to be a permanent access panel. Well, one of these days I have to actually cut a V in the transom, but that's gonna take a while before I get that to that level. All right, more fitment on that one. And see about this one, getting it in there. I had a couple off this one and I wanted to just a bit. It looks to me like it ought to. I need some light. Yeah, well, I'm not sure how much you can see, but from my looking at it, I think I got the curvature right. It was based on the outside of the hull, so that'll work. And I can make another one off. I can use this as a pattern to make a second one. I'm gonna go ahead and get me a flashlight so I can try to really look at this just for giggles. All right. I wanted to make it go all the way to the ends, but I couldn't fit the piece through the hole. I had to actually lop the ears off. I can come back and fill in there. I thought of making the next section. Let's say I make the ears that go on the end here fit the way they should. And you know, that way take it all the way across so you have basically a solid line here all the way across. And then use that template to make another one that's all the way across, and cut the next one right down the center so that it slides. And then you have you know, that seam that's down here would be bridged by a solid piece. That's a possibility. Alright, so I did my comparisons, my dry fitting I should call it. So I did my dry fitting, and some adjustments are there to be made. The problem is, it's an hour round trip from my home to here. And this is one of the last marinas around that lets you pull out and do your own work on your boat. Our old house was not far from here, so it was pretty easy for me to slip down here and take care of business. Our new house, as I said, it's a half an hour from here. So that makes it harder. I mean, it's not an excuse, but that's one of the reasons this boat sat here for 2 years. And the other is I'm kind of the only one in the family really all that into it, and that makes it hard. I'm hoping that now that my kids are older that they'll get back into it. Yeah, got a lot of good memories with that boat. If there isn't a renewed interest once I get it back in the water, then it may go up for sale. We'll see. But I'm bound and determined I'm going to get it back in the water and enjoy a little bit of sailing with it before making that determination. I don't want to just hand it over to somebody you know, in its current state. That would be an admission of defeat as far as I'm concerned. So this is
is a bid for, you know, recapturing something that was pretty important to me for a while. There was a while there where I was on that boat, you know, 3 or 4 times of the week, 10 months out of the year. Maybe took a break in January and February. That was about it. And I missed that. But you know, there were reasons for that. A lot of that had to do with you know, being there for the kids to, you know, for their different activities and things. So that's more important than any boat. And it was not supposed to be here this long. I pulled the boat out to do the bottom on it. That was it. I was just gonna, you know, periodically you have to pull your boat, scrape the barnacles, you know, sand the hull, and reapply bottom paint, get it back in the water. And I was famous for turning these things around, you know, those jobs around in 3 days, man. Long weekend, bam, back in the water. But this last time I pulled it out, took a good hard look at the strut that supported the propeller shaft, and it was cracked all to pieces. I mean, it was bent, and then I looked closer, and it wasn't just bent, it was cracked. And looking at what it would take to repair that, and then just taking a hard look at the motor itself and all the supporting electrical components and the exhaust, which I'd already worked on once, but you know, it seems like it was always needing more work. Yeah, I just eventually got to the point where I had to ask if it was worth it. Yeah, so I've had some folks say that they thought that I'd made a mistake, you know, basically moving from an inboard to an outboard. But as I started taking out a lot of the electrical components and things that were connected to the motor, and just seeing how rough they all were, I'm feeling a lot better about my decision, because I mean, I'm eliminating a lot of safety hazards by getting fuel tank out of the interior of the boat, the fuel delivery system, fuel pump, carburetor, all those are areas where, you know, you can have a leak right down into your bilge, which is the worst place in the world to have it. By having an outboard, I'll have, you know, regular outboard tanks that will I'll figure a way to fit those up in the cockpit area such that they do not, you know, if there is a little gas leak or something out of them, it will not go down into the bilge. That's the number one thing. So I've eliminated all that. I've eliminated, you know, a mile of really nasty old wiring that, you know, let's see, fuel, nasty wiring. What do you not want together in the bilge of your boat, you know? So all that's gone. The exhaust system, which was raw water cooled, and you know, I had fixed it. I actually had a new one welded up, you know, 5 or 6 years ago, but then with seawater running through it, that's just waiting to go out again. Even though I use stainless, nothing's impervious to salt water. So yeah, these are just ticking off all the reasons why I will feel happier having an outboard than an inboard on it, particularly because it's a sailboat. I mostly want to be sailing. I want to use the motor to get in and out of my slip, and as little as possible after that. I think I made the right call. We'll see as we go down the road. Now, had no idea I was going to take so long to do all this. It was not the intention, of course. Just other things got in the way. You know, with an old boat like this, people are giving these things away for free all the time because you know, the expense in an old boat. Now, you go buy a brand new boat, you're going to throw down a chunk of change. But old boats like this, people are giving them away all the time because it's expensive just to keep them, and it's more expensive to keep them out of the water than in the water. So, you know, I've blown the value of the boat just paying rent on it sitting there. It was a dumb thing to do, but you know, a lot of my my decisions are not guided by rational thought. I think many of us are that way. I hung on to it for sentimental value because I have a lot of good memories tied up into it, and I want to have more. I want to make more memories out of it. And that's the plan. And as you get older, you know, a young man will say, "Well, yeah, I can get rid of this boat, and I'll get another one later. You know, I'll do that later." And as you get older, you realize later may never come. If you got something you want to do it.